So everybody, it's very nice to see you. It's been a while. I'm Brett Davis. I'm here and very honored to have John Cox, who should be our governor of California, who I really think was the best choice. And I want to say he is a Renaissance man, because what he's done in a short span of his life is amazing, and he still has a lot to do. He even has this new book out called The Newsom Nightmare, which I think he's named right on the dime. What Newsom has done to California is criminal. John, nice to see you.
Great to be with you, Brett. Appreciate it.
I've heard so much about you, I feel like I almost know you already.
You know, the interesting thing is I named the book The Newsom Nightmare, and some people think that's a slam on Newsom, and it really is in many ways, but it's about the difficulty of making a go of it in this state. It's not a nightmare for me. I just absolutely love it here, but I've been successful enough in business that I can afford to live in California. But 99% of people haven't been as successful as I am. Knock on wood, I'm very grateful for my success. And I just want to make it, and that's the reason I ran for governor to begin with. I wanted to make it so that more people could have an enjoyable life in California, even if they're not wealthy. And the nightmare happens when people get here and they enjoy the weather and the natural beauty, but they find that they're just working one or two jobs and burning the candle at both ends, and they're just not able to make it. And most of the time, the reason they're not able to make it, probably 99% of the reason, is because special interests and lobbyists in Sacramento control the state. Mm-hmm. Newsom is happy to give them the control because they give him the support to feed his ambitions. And the result is that we get policies that make our taxes are the highest in the country, the housing, we have shortages of water and energy, our roads are horrendous, safety is sacrificed, we have a huge deficit and bigger than even people know because of the unfunded pensions and healthcare, and just a myriad of creature comforts that we don't have because of this special interest control. Mm-hmm. So, I know we're going to talk about why I ran for governor, but and the book is about all of those issues, the regulations, the taxes, the cost of living, and all those things that are caused by giving government over to these interest groups and lobbyists and funders.
So what do you tell the individual? Because a couple months ago, I know the stats have changed recently a little bit. We had more people moving out of San Diego than were buying houses.
Yeah.
What do you tell individuals that really are fighting to stay here, they want to stay here, but they're having challenges because of what Newsom has created?
Well, people are making a value choice. I mean, they're basically saying, I love the weather so much. I love the natural beauty. You walking down to the ocean, for example. I mean, driving over here was just gorgeous. I mean, it's just lovely to be able to look at that. I grew up in Chicago, wonderful city. And if you live in the lakefront, it's kind of nice to look at the lake. But the weather is horrible, most of the year. It's nice in September maybe, but the rest of the year, it's either too hot or too cold or too humid or, too dry. And so people make a value judgment. They say, well, gee, I know the taxes are outrageous here. The cost of living is outrageous. We do get shortages of water and electricity and all these other kinds of things. But I stay because the weather is great. And, the issue is that Mr. Newsom goes around the world and goes around the country saying California has all these great businesses and all this great economy, and we're now coming up on being the fourth largest economy in the world. And why is that? It's not because of him. It's in spite of him. Mm-hmm. Because all these great corporate headquarters are here because the weather is great. Doctors, the best doctors in the world, where do they want to practice? Well, here. Why? Because, they can practice, they can make a lot of money, but they can also enjoy this tremendous beauty and this tremendous weather. So they're not moving somewhere else. The issue, which you alluded to, is the fact that a lot of people have just given up. They've just said, well, the weather is great, the natural beauty is great, but if I'm working 2 or 3 jobs...
I'm missing out on living a life and enjoying my life.
Exactly. When do I get a chance to enjoy it? I don't.
Right.
So I'm going to go to Texas It's going to be hotter. There's no ocean, but I can basically maybe afford a lifestyle, and therefore those things are better for me than to have the natural beauty and weather of California. Again, it's like the rooster claiming credit for the sunrise, right? You've heard that expression?
Yeah.
Newsom claims credit for this wonderful
Sure.
situation in California.
I wonder if he's going to take credit for Tesla leaving.
Yeah, well, Tesla now, Elon Musk has just said recently, as you know, SpaceX and X are now moving out their headquarters.
Well,
Frankly, they've already probably moved most of their employees anyway, but now their headquarters is officially going to go to Texas.
So I don't want to get into. I mean, there's so much we could cover, and I think you're a fascinating person to talk to about this because you are and have been in the now of what's going on and also where we could be going. And I still think that you should make another run to be governor because I think we need you more than ever right now.
Well, the reason I ran is because I hate corruption. I grew up in Chicago. My mom was a Chicago public school teacher. I saw how the politicians in Chicago absolutely ruined the schools there.
My mother was a teacher also here for 45 years.
Then you appreciate the fact that education is the reason I'm sitting here. I mean, I became successful because I got better educated and I used that education to advise people and make investments, and those things turned out great. It's education. Obviously, some people can make money because they're great quarterbacks or because they are great entertainers or singers and things like that. And those are wonderful situations, but they're few and far between. Most people will get a better opportunity and have a better life because they get a better education. The trouble is that interest groups in Chicago, as well as here in California, teachers' unions, for example, and I'm not blaming the teachers, I'm blaming the leaders of those unions, the power-hungry leaders of those unions. They want that power, and they'll use anything they can, which is their dues money they collect, to put in politicians that make sure that they have power. Well, by virtue of that, they control the schools. Well, they don't have the same goals as parents do, frankly. I mean, they'll tell you they want better schools and they want better opportunity for kids, but what they really want is to cement their own power and cement their own control of the money.
Is that what you call tenure?
Well, tenure is one aspect of it, sure. Tenure is a way for them to accumulate power because the teachers who like tenure, they don't want to get fired for doing a bad job, right?
Right.
So they are happily giving over their dues money to these leaders because they don't want to get fired, and of course, that is that's an opposition to what parents want. Parents want better quality teachers, and they want teachers who can be fired because then they're held accountable for doing a good job. If you can't be fired, you're not going to care whether you do a good job or not, and that's
so. Mr. Newsom, I understand, has his kids in private schools.
Of course, yeah, because he can afford it.
So I think somewhere along the way, this is my take, that when you're involved in a situation, how can you have any credibility when you're not doing what your constituents are doing?
Well, let's put it this way: you can't have any credibility if people looked at results. But see, Newsom doesn't care about that. The biggest constituency he wants to impress are the media. The media loves him because they happen to be more liberal and they, agree with him on a lot of the issues, like having abortion on demand and available all the time. And
what about their advertisers?
Well, their advertisers probably want a better economic environment. I'll grant you that. But the other thing that the other constituency that Newsom caters to are these interest groups. And specifically, they're the unions in Sacramento. They throw around a lot of money.
Sure.
The teachers' union alone raises $350 million a year in dues money. They've got to spend it. Environmental groups, lobbyists for environmental groups, all these groups raise a ton of money.
Sure.
Scaring people about the environment, making believe that they can do something about climate change by changing California. They can't. China and India are dictating what goes on with pollution, but they'll convince California voters that somehow changing things and having us pay a whole lot more for gasoline and electricity is somehow going to change the equation of global pollution.
Sure.
It's not. But you also have trial lawyers and real estate interests and healthcare companies.
Well, just really the stake shrinks. That big stake is starting to shrink.
All of these groups want policy bent to what they want that assures them of a better economic result, right? More profit. So they are happy to give Mr. Newsom all the money and all the support they can. And so the answer is, for conservatives like us, how do we change policy ourselves? And the answer is, we can't until we remove these interest groups from power.
I don't think you can do that.
And that's why I ran for governor, because I figured out a way that we could.
Okay.
And the way that we could is to use the New Hampshire model.
Okay, and that's what that's a segue for what we're going to talk about.
Yes, I want to talk about that.
So this is interesting.
Because I'm just not here to talk about problems. I'm here to talk about a solution.
Well, I like the word challenges. Problems is kind of
Okay.
a thing.
Challenges.
Challenges can be overcome, right?
Our challenge right now is that interest groups and the media combine forces to basically influence policy in their direction. So the issue is, how do we get policy influenced in our direction? The only way to do that is to take away the power of media and interest groups. How do you do that? You do it by reducing the size of campaigns. The reason that they have such power, the media and these interest groups, is because campaigns are run on the media. You know, I know you're a member of the media because of this podcast to some degree, but...
Well, I have a magazine. We put on events.
I get it.
I would think that our media is very similar to what you're describing. We're a smaller based media where we tell the truth. It's about,
It's more one-on-one.
Well, it is, but we're trying to get the word out to where I think it's important that people have lost trust in the media.
Oh, and well, they should. I mean, look at what happened with COVID. I mean, that was Exhibit A. I mean,
Sure.
the media flogged all these lockdowns as being the greatest thing. The media dismissed the idea that it was a leak from a lab.
They put fear. They use fear.
Fear.
Right.
Total fear.
Right.
Total fear. So, what's the antidote? The antidote is the New Hampshire model. Let me explain that real quick. The state of New Hampshire has 1 million people roughly, but they have 400 members of their House of Representatives.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. And they've had this forever. They've functioned like this forever. So what does that mean? Do the math. 1 million people divided by 400 people is about 2,500 people in each district, average. So what happens in New Hampshire? In New Hampshire, the way you get elected to the legislature is you go door to door, in your neighborhood, or you go to a town hall meeting that they call, and you present your qualifications, and you say, I'm Brett Davis, and here's what I think, and here's what I'm going to champion when I get to Concord, which is the state capital, and if you don't like the job I'm doing, here, I live over here, and you can call me up, or you can, tell me I'm doing a bad job, and I'm held accountable because it's a tiny little district. Mm-hmm. So I was.
Are the terms any different as far as?
No, it's a 2-year term. And they get paid $100 a year. They're basically public servants. They really, truly are public servants, not like the Sacramento leeches that we have that are making $100,000 from salary, but more importantly, they're making another $100,000 from per diems. And on top of that, they know that when they leave the legislature, they'll clean up making $1 million a year as a lobbyist. Right? That's the drill of people who go to Sacramento.
Right.
That's our fault. That's our fault because we haven't changed the system. The California legislature was created by the Constitution of 1870 when we had hardly any people in California. I mean, today we have 40 million, and we haven't changed the number of representatives. The same thing happens with the U.S. Congress. I don't know if you know this about the Constitution, but the U.S. Congress, the Constitution doesn't say anything about the structure of the U.S. Congress. It only says Congress is elected by the people. Congress itself passed a law in 1929 limiting the number to 435 because that's all they wanted at that time. The country was growing too much, and they said 435 is enough people to get something done in Washington. Well, think about it. the number of people in each congressional district today is $750,000. What do you need to get elected to the U.S. Congress today? Millions of dollars. Special interests will give it to you. Media like crazy. You need to be a media person. You need to be a sports figure, or you need to be someone that's been in the media for a long time, or a career politician like Joe Biden, right? How do you get elected? That's the only way you can get elected. What I'm championing now, and what I was talking about when I ran for governor, is a way to reduce the campaigns in size. So how does that work practically? The proposal is to take congressional districts and subdivide them into 100 tiny little districts, like New Hampshire. So if you take a district that's 750,000 people and you subdivide it into 100 districts, each district is only 7,500 people. Mm-hmm. That's a manageable number. You, if you wanted to run for Congress, Brett, you could literally meet every single one of those 7,500 people. Mm-hmm. They're not all going to agree with you. They're not all going to agree on anything, frankly, but at least they will know you and they'll be able to hold you accountable. And then what happens is those 100 people, you're one of them, there's 99 others in that district, you get together in a meeting after the election. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a state central committee meeting, and you decide amongst you which one of you is going to go to Washington. So one person of that 100 goes to Washington to represent the district. The other 99 stay home. They don't get paid. They carry on their lives. They run their businesses. They do whatever they do, take care of their children. But they hold that person accountable that's gone there. Uh-huh. And each of those 100 or those 99 that stayed home, they're accountable to their little tiny district. Mm-hmm. So if they, if somebody in one of those little tiny districts says, I don't like what they're doing, I don't like giving money to Ukraine, they can call up or they send an email to their local guy and say, hey, tell that guy not to vote for sending money to Ukraine. Now, he may or may not do what they asked him to do. That's representative government. That's a republic, which is what we have. But they'll be able to have their voice heard. That's the key to this.
How many people nowadays are as involved, other than social media, of course, are really involved and know who they're voting for?
They don't.
Why is that?
Because it's too big.
You think that's what it is?
Not only that, it's not only too big. They read every day about some big group spending $20 million or some big billionaire putting money into a super PAC. And then they see it on TV. They see the advertisements, and they see, most of which, by the way, are negative. Why are they negative? Because negative works. That's why.
Is there a breaking point with this, or is negative always going to be in?
Oh, the best ways to get people's attention is to make them angry or scared. Okay. Appealing to people's better angels is a wonderful concept. It's so romantic. But at the end of the day, does it really motivate people to take an action?
People like a train wreck.
Why do they watch NASCAR?
It's terrible.
I'm not a NASCAR fan. There's a lot of people who are.
That's a good analogy. I mean,
they watch it for the crashes to some extent.
Terrible.
No, they like it for the competition too, I'm sure. I don't want to.
It's very interesting.
With a broad
but
brush.
You know what's interesting what you're saying, and I don't disagree with this. It almost sounds like the beginning of the way our country was formed. That's one thing.
Yes.
And that's the way I think it was intended to be.
Totally.
Simplicity always has more magnitude, I think, than having all the craziness that we have now. That's one thing. Now, what's interesting what you're saying is all the money that's being spent in media. Media right now, every year is losing more and more of its audience.
Well, that's true, and that's presented some complexity. By the way, when you say media, you're probably thinking they're losing audience. That's the broadcast media. You're absolutely right, but don't forget we have streaming, which is huge, and social media, which is huge.
Right. So I mean, there's a way to define it, but
right,
that's where your accounting background's important because you keep everything in checks and balances.
Right.
But I would say. Maybe it's our time frame for where we come from. When I think media, I think the 4 big stations.
Of course, yes.
But they're on their way down, and they are doing better on.
No question.
And
sports and sports and news are the only things keeping them going.
The sad thing is that a huge percentage of audience and people more our age are going towards this way. But I hate to say this, but TikTok is owned by China.
But that's media.
Right. It's a form of media, but more people
Yep.
are getting their quick hits of news from TikTok than any other form of media right now.
If anything, Brad, and you're taking advantage of it right here, is a podcast, right? That's another form of media. Media has actually even exploded even more. I mean, we could look at
No, you're right.
this growth of media. You know, in 1960, when Nixon and Kennedy had those debates, media was, you're right, the big 3 or 4 networks, right? Today, it is an absolute explosion, and it's billions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars are being spent on media. And guess what? The average voter has withdrawn, I think, even more. So very few of them, frankly, pay any attention to politics. They really, you do.
Well, I think the new group of people that the Gen X types and people that are younger are getting, and even people our age are starting to look at it. Of course, we like detail. We like,
Yeah.
we're from the Evelyn Wood school, of course, of things.
Right.
But
We
I think,
read, yeah.
But I think the kids like the train wreck, and they like that quick hit of something that's blows it out of the water, that just, and so already it's in their mind whatever they hear, and it's all done within under a minute.
And it's a video usually,
Right?
And it's a TikTok video. You're absolutely right. The reach is unbelievable.
And that's the news.
It's scary though.
But, well, no, it is. It's very scary. But that's the climate of where media is right now, I think, and we've even had to adapt to it. And I'll tell you, it's helped. And I really appreciate you being here, because I like your no nonsense,
Right.
your realism. I wish you would have been our governor. We wouldn't be in the messes that we're in now.
Right.
If Mr. Newsom decides to go any further with his political career, I don't know what he's going to run on, because he hasn't done a damn thing in California but ruined things that there's a reason why people are leaving. He shouldn't be proud of that.
He can't point to successes. We have a shortage of housing. We have a shortage of energy. We have a shortage of water. Our roads are horrendous. The schools are horrendous.
He's taking care of the sewage coming into California.
The sewage problem he hasn't dealt with. The border. I mean, you just run down the list.
What about his current new law that he pushed through not too long ago?
Oh, the taking away parents' rights.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
So what is your angle? Were you surprised by him signing this bill?
It's another issue of accountability. Why did he sign it? Because the LGBT groups who championed it, right? They're the ones that want to make sure that trans rights are elevated above parents. That's really what's happening here, right? I mean, let's call it what it is, right? That group gives a lot of money to his campaign. I mean, LGBT groups are a major funder, and not only that, they're not only a major funder, they're a major factor in Democratic primaries. Mm-hmm. Think about it from that standpoint. If you're going to compete in a Democratic primary in South Carolina, in Mississippi, I'm talking about Democratic primaries now. That's where they're going to be far more liberal. In Illinois, in Michigan, those primary voters, the Democratic primary voters, care wildly about the climate. They care wildly about LGBT. They care wildly about abortion. And they almost don't even look at other issues, frankly.
It all sounds like emotional to me.
Very emotional. And that's Newsom's strong point. Why do you think he focuses on all those things? He knows that that's what Democratic primary voters. You can't be president unless you win the Democratic primaries.
Right.
And so he is totally focused. But the trouble is, people in California want better roads. They want better schools. They want water. They want electricity. They want affordable gasoline. They want, better education system. But that doesn't matter to him.
I agree 100%. Now, for people that are tuning in or are going to see this video, I want to make one thing clear. We believe, and I know this for a fact, that everybody is treated equally the same. I mean, we have nothing against gays or lesbians or transgenders. I think everybody has a right to believe what they believe. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the deterioration of what's going on.
Yeah, and let's make this clear. No one is saying that trans people have no rights. Of course they have rights. The issue is, I, as a parent of my 10 or 12-year-old child, I deserve to know what that child is doing at school. And if that child is at school is betraying a totally different perspective on things, I have a right to know about it. Now, it may or may not be that I can do something about it, but if I don't even know about it,
Sure.
I can't do anything about it. I can't have psychological therapy applied. Again, an 8 or 10 or 12-year-old who feels that they're a different gender, there's a decent suspicion there that they've got a mental issue, an issue that may or may not be cured with therapy. I'm not a therapist. I don't know.
Here's what I've heard.
The parent has a right to know about it.
Sure, they do. So here's what I've heard from people that are gay or transgender, and I have friends from all walks of life.
I have a sister who is. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. What I found that when kids are really young, they really don't know. They don't have the life experience.
They're very impressionable.
Right.
Of course.
So I mean, and a lot of the people that have had major changes in their life in those areas, and have gone in certain areas where maybe they've had sex changes, or maybe they thought they were gay and then later on they realized they weren't gay and then they become straight. Whatever the deal is, I think like drinking or driving, there's a certain reason why we have those numbers in place. Right.
Why 18-year-olds can't drive, or an under 18-year-old can't drive, or can't.
So I mean, I think there's a certain point where the brain has to get experience and develop, and I don't think that government should be getting involved with parenting.
And that's the issue here. The idea that Newsom would sign, I mean, in many ways, it's important you brought that up, because that law, what he signed, goes to the very nature of what I'm talking about. An interest group is championing that policy.
But he signed it, no problem. And a local.
But there's no parents group that's.
Well, there's going to be, because already he's getting sued.
Well, you're right. They're germinating, but they're not very organized yet. The LGBT group is very organized.
Well, they always have been.
Right.
So who locally was the first person to sign off on this bill?
I actually don't know. I only know what I read in the newspapers. But I mean, you're right. Chino School District, I think.
There's somebody locally in San Diego.
There were school districts locally that said, we're not going to adhere to the state policy that says that teachers have to keep quiet about this stuff. That's what really happened.
I heard there was a local San Diego politician that was involved with pushing that through to Newsom's desk.
Maybe Tony Atkins. I don't know.
We need to get all the details on it.
But the point is, what do we do about it, bro?
Yeah, what do we do? That's a question.
I'm tired of just complaining about the bad schools and the bad laws and all. I'm tired of complaining about them. The solution is hear the people.
Okay.
This idea. And it's small districts where people can have their voice heard. Right now, with the way that everything is media driven, the loudest voices get heard, the people with the most money, the people who can fund campaigns and super PACs and all these things, they get their way most of the time, and which is why California is screwed up, and which is why Republicans are in a super minority here. The Democrats in California have done a wonderful job of vacuuming up all this money, and because they have the media, they can demonize anybody who tries to oppose them. And it's that combination of the media with the money. The way for us to take back is to change the ground rules, change the structure to make the districts so tiny that people can exercise some influence over their local legislators. Does that make sense?
Makes 100%. Everything that you're saying since you've come in has made more sense. Everything makes sense that you're saying. And if anybody can't realize what we're talking about, I feel bad, because the things that we're having, the problems we're having now, are because this man didn't get into office. And that's just the fact. It has nothing to do with him being here. Believe me, I've gone to war with people on podcasts, and I have no problem being real. I've gotten...
Just so you know, I had a ballot initiative to change the California legislature to these tiny districts. I missed by 25,000 signatures because the idiot guy, I'm not going to name him, I just won a judgment against him. I got back a little bit of my money, but he just screwed up royally, and lied to me on several occasions and made just outward mistakes, and I came 25,000 signatures short. part of it was local registrars who threw out signatures they shouldn't have thrown out.
I've been hearing stories about that recently.
Oh
too.
yeah, that's part of the whole complex.
That came up at a meeting yesterday, and we've got to clean that up too.
I spent $2.5 million of my own money to try to get this on the ballot, and it was heartbreaking to come 25,000 signatures short. I still ran because I had obligated myself, and I followed through on my obligation, and I spent $5 million of my hard-earned after-tax money running for governor, and I don't begrudge it. I've done very, 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 very well. I'm very happy to try to change this state and this country, but we have to change the rules under which this game is played. Right now, the rules are favoring the media and all these money people, the super PACs. All this stuff is stilted. The system, because of the size of these congressional districts, because of the size of California's legislative district, the money people and the media control our political system. It's time for us to take it back. I'm sorry, electing Donald Trump is not necessarily going to result in it. I wish it would, by the way. I like what he did. But we need to change the structure of the Congress, and that's what's going to really result in change.
Will he have an impact on what's going on with Congress?
Yeah, probably, but he's still got to kowtow to Congress, and he's still got to get things passed by Congress. Sure. And unfortunately, he's going to encounter congressmen, all kinds of them, 435, who have to raise money and who have to get in the media in order to get elected. A lot of them are going to be in his corner. You know, people like Chip Roy and people like Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene and a whole bunch of these people who are great fundraisers and who are great at raising money. By the way, why are they great at raising money? Because they scare and anger people, right? I mean, that's the bottom line to it. I mean, they're probably good people too, but they know that raising money is the game, and the best way to raise money is to get people angry and scared. I would like to have a whole Congress that's elected by people because they have character, because they have competence, and because they represent the people of their district.
You know what
and
this
they're
sounds
accountable.
Like? This sounds like the beginning of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Getting this accomplished would be like that. It really would. This would fundamentally alter the political equation in this country.
Sure.
And frankly, I think the world.
The school teacher running for office, the firefighter, the people that every average day people,
the pastor, the homemaker,
they have some skin in the game,
and they would be accountable. Think about it. If districts are only 7,500 people, you're accountable. And how are you accountable? Because if people in that little district don't like what you did, they can unvote you. They can vote someone else in.
Right.
That's accountability. My congressman is Scott Peters.
Yeah.
I think he's a horrible congressman because he just goes along with whatever Nancy Pelosi wanted and does whatever the Democratic caucus does in Washington. I don't think he has much independence.
I will say one positive thing about him. One.
Okay.
He really wants to see our sewage cleaned up, and he's been really
grasped that as an issue. I agree with you.
He actually reached out and said, "I'm really concerned about this. He's not happy with what Newsom's doing with this situation." That's the one thing I can say that is bipartisan that I supported,
okay.
and I was shocked on. But other than that, there's nothing else that I agree with.
I can accept that. And Sarah Jacobs, the same story.
I don't know anything about Sarah Jacobs, but
the point is, by the way, they might well be elected in my system. They would end up getting elected in their little 7,500 person district.
Would Scott Peters change, do you think, based on what you're talking about, though?
I think he might because he wouldn't. It wouldn't be about money. He'd have to be accountable to the majority of the 99 other community representatives that were elected in his district.
Why do you say he might be willing to change? I mean, what would you do if he sees
Because he would know that he's not in Congress because of a bunch of interest groups giving him money, or because Nancy Pelosi, ordained it or something like that. He would know that he was in Congress because a majority of the 99 other people elected in his district decided that he had the competence, character, and representative ability to, and he might be able to get elected on that basis. But he'd be responsive to the people of his district, he'd also be responsible to the 99 others that sent him there.
Okay.
If he wasn't, he would be bounced at the next election. So he'd know that he was going to be held accountable for doing the right things.
What do you, going back to this book, what is it about this book that you're most proud of?
Here are the people, the solution I talked about. The book is about Newsom's background.
Okay.
People need to know about it, by the way, because it's all about power. His grandfather had tremendous power. His father got tremendous power in California.
Involved with the Getty family?
With the Getty family. You know, his grandfather was involved with Pat Brown, who was governor back in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And his father, Newsom's father, was involved with the Gettys and Jerry Brown. And Gavin is just following in their footsteps. And it's all about gaining power.
And Gavin's aunt is Nancy Pelosi.
Right. But it's
marriage?
It's by marriage, but it's all about this power structure. And again,
It doesn't sound like somebody from the people, does it? It sounds like somebody that's really just kind of like a puppet.
Well, you know, if he did things that made sense, like build reservoirs to hold our water, or build nuclear power plants and keep natural gas and keep hydroelectric that would provide electric power to us. If he did things that made sense, if he held the schools accountable for better results, if he did things like that, there would be a different story. But he doesn't. And he doesn't do that because there's interest groups that benefit from what he's doing.
He's a puppet.
Yeah. And he's a puppet because he wants the power.
Sure.
And so these interest groups flood him. Look at the recall. People were really upset in the recall because of his French Laundry thing. And what did he do? He marshaled all these interest groups.
He did clean San Francisco up when the leadership from China came in.
He did for that short time. I know. Didn't that just speak volumes? I know.
I'm sorry.
No, it's true.
That's the way he rolls, right?
Well, and why was that important? Because that was also important to the media. The media reported then that San Francisco was cleaned up for a week. But
So with all the goings on, we could do like a lifetime show on this whole thing. I mean, you are so schooled on so many different areas and topics of what's going on in California. It's amazing. I mean, I knew you were on top of all this, but talking to you, we've never met. We could get all we could do a show with Collins every week, and you would just have a huge audience. Probably have a higher audience than Mr. Newsom's podcast.
I
wish. He has a podcast now?
He does.
He started 2 weeks ago.
I'm not surprised.
He just started 2 weeks ago.
But it's all about media again. He's good at the media. I will say he's a good media creature.
Nobody in their pod that I've heard in the United States that has a podcast has their own hairstylist.
Yeah, no, he's much better looking than I am, and he knows it.
I don't think he's a good-looking guy. I think he has a lot of makeup on.
Yeah, my wife doesn't think he's as good looking as I am too. But thank heaven for blind women.
That's a good. That's a good sign, right?
Well, it's a good sign. She has to think that, or else she wouldn't be involved.
So, what would you, based on everything that's involved with Newsom and him thinking about possibly getting into higher office, and leaving California the way that it is, and he had nothing to do with us being one of the biggest economies in the world. That's always been there. What would you have to say, looking in that camera right there? What would you have to say to Mr. Newsom about what he's done, or is it even worth saying anything about?
It's kind of a waste of time in the sense that
I don't think it's a waste of time, because I think people need to hear what's going on and what you would do differently if you were running.
The book has tremendous. I talk about all the challenges. I talk about all this stuff: the education system, the roads, the regulation environment,
parents losing parents losing their rights.
Parents losing their rights. That's in the book too, in terms of education.
But this is now the latest thing was I know. He was already talking about this.
He will mouth the words that he wants: better water and better electricity and all these things. But at the end of the day, what is he going to do? He's going to do what the interest groups want, because they're the ones that enable him to meet his goal of higher office.
So look into the camera and say something to Mr. Newsom that you'd want to say to him.
As if he's going to listen to me.
But I have a feeling he'll listen. I think you're going to be surprised.
I hope you have the goal of making life better for people. That's what every public servant should want.
Has he made life better for people in California?
Some. specifically people who are members of interest groups who have benefited from the change in the way policies are addressed here.
What about the people leaving the state? What do you have to say about that?
Well, the people leaving the state, in his view, are stupid because California is such a great place. But clearly, people are leaving the state because it's unaffordable and they don't like the schools. I have a good friend of mine who's moving to Portugal because he's wealthy, and he's got small children, and he doesn't even want the private schools.
Look right in the camera and say something to Mr. Newsom. Tell him something from your heart.
Well, I would wish that you would have a change of heart and that you would start to fashion policies that would actually benefit the broad spectrum of people. And I hope actually that he would support Hear the People, and people can go and find out about it at hearthepeople.org. It's a way of empowering individual voters instead of interest groups, instead of the media. This country, I hope you would agree that this country would be better off with a lot less media power and a lot less money spent on politics. And that would mean that the people would reign supreme. Our founders were brilliant in the sense that they gave us a Congress that was supposed to be a Congress of the people. Mm-hmm. It was not supposed to be a Congress of the media or of interest groups. And the only reason it's become a Congress of interest groups and media is because of the explosion of media and the cost of buying media and the fact that we created these humongous legislative districts. What we need to do is a reform that reduces the size of these districts so that individual voters have more of a say and can hold their representatives accountable. I hope, Mr. Newsom, you would agree with accountability. I hope that you would agree with more individual voters say so. And frankly, those are bedrock American values. If you think about American values, we are a democracy. We're a democratic republic. A democratic republic means that the voters reign supreme. They do not, under this system, when you have 750,000 people in a congressional district, the voters do not reign supreme in that system. The media and the interest groups control that kind of a system. We've got to make the change. We're coming up on our 250th anniversary. Can you think of a better time to refresh our democracy, our democratic republic, and put the people back in charge again and take away the power of these interest groups and these billionaires and the media complex, not just the broadcast, but streaming, the social media companies, they have a lot of say-so. We, the people, need to have the power to hold our representatives accountable. I believe this country really will take to this idea once they learn more about it. It's a challenge for me to get it heard because the media is the gatekeeper of what gets heard. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to spend what I can afford to spend, and I'm hoping to get other people on board this as we go along.
What would you give him as far as a grade as being governor? If you had to give. So, Mr. Newsom, you're great.
Is there such a thing as an F minus? I don't know. So maybe people will think I'm disingenuous.
No, be honest. So you'd give Gavin an F?
Well, yes. And frankly, there's a whole bunch of people around the country who I would give Fs to, again, for the same reason. And by the way, I would give certain politicians on the right an F. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz come to mind. And why? Because they're people who just get people angry and scared and raise a whole ton of money in doing so. Why are they doing that? Maybe they ultimately believe in some of the same things I do from the standpoint of lower taxes, less government, less regulation. I'll grant you that. But hopefully they will look at this change and say, this is the kind of system we need where the people reign supreme. And if they do, I'll change my opinion of them as well. We have too many politicians who are created and creatures of the media these days. I mean that.
Sure, no, I agree. Everything you're saying, I don't disagree with. Nantucket does something very similar. They get into a little hall.
Oh, the little council. Yeah, a little city council.
And and everybody comes in. They don't have any budget, and Nantucket's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And they go in there and they tell whoever's going to run, they tell them exactly what they think about them, and they vote right there on the spot, and they hand count the ballots. It's
And,
a very
and they
small,
can hold people accountable.
right, and then they do their job, and then a lot of them have other professions or they're retired or whatever. But it works for Nantucket. It has for years.
I think it would work for the U.S. Congress too. Obviously, we have to make sure that the system allows for people to, go to Washington who represent their districts. That's why it's a vote of the 99 people that are elected. It's still Democratic Republic. We won't go to a pure democracy. I mean, that would be chaos. And we certainly can't have, I think limiting the number of congressmen in Washington to 435 was probably a decent idea at the time. You have a body that's too large in Washington.
Sure.
You're not going to get things done. So clearly, I think, there are proposals out there that say, well, let's just expand Congress.
A little closer.
I don't think that works, because you can't have a Congress of 5,000
Right.
people.
Right.
The two-step system that we've devised with Here Are the People, which, by the way, we have legal opinions from some of the top law firms in the country.
Wow.
That it's A, constitutional, and B, it's workable. So
I look forward to hearing more about.
Yeah.
You brought a couple things, and I did my research on you. It wasn't hard to find because you're all over social media, but the book was a nice, refreshing thing that we had no idea about. And then, of course, what you're sharing about Here Are the People, which is very important.
Yep.
And then the website for that is herethepeople.org.
Yep. And right now, what we're trying to do is we're going to work in Arizona. We've chosen Arizona as a test case because it's a purple state. It's pretty evenly divided.
It's close by.
It's close by to me. That helps. And we're going to try to convince the Arizona legislature to take the first step and to enact this.
Well, they would be open, I think. I used to live in Scottsdale.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they would be open to what you're talking about, more so than, and the fact that they're so close, they probably would be very open-minded to it, I would think.
There's an independent streak there, and a streak that really welcomes new ideas. From Barry Goldwater to John McCain.
Yeah, right.
You've got people there that will be open to a new idea. The Constitution, the Founding Fathers, in their judgment and wisdom, gave the states this open-ended power. Many people don't know this, but in Article 1, it's right there. The states determine the time, manner, and place of electing Congress.
Right.
This goes to the manner in which Congress is elected. So it's not preordained that we have to have these huge districts. The states can figure this out and do something like Hear the People.
One more question about Mr. Newsom, only because I'm concerned because I live in California.
Yeah.
And I talk to people all over the country because of my media stuff that we do. And people are saying, we hear he's going to run for vice president, or he's going to be asked to get involved to be vice president. You don't run to be vice president, but I mean, you do.
Yeah, he'll be asked to be on the ticket.
So my question to you is, do you think he's earned the right to do that based on how he's failed in California?
He satisfies.
And you do believe he's failed in California?
Totally, but he satisfies the national image. He's well known in the media. He's gotten himself all around the country. He's also made himself a darling of the far left of the Democratic Party, which, let's face it, in our system, you have to appeal to the extremes. That's one of the four plagues.
Isn't it changed, though, because of what happened with Biden? Don't you see there being more people from the Democratic Party that are
more moderate?
No,
Biden is going way left.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people in that party that are disfranchised that are leaving the Democratic Party and they're becoming Republican. A lot of the younger groups, I understand. A lot of them are concerned that I've talked to, the under 30 group, which Trump has really raised the numbers on. I'm not sure if you've seen the numbers, what he's done in the last couple of months. A lot of these younger kids that I've talked to under the age of 30 are saying they're afraid they're never going to be able to own a home and leave their parents' home. That's one thing.
It's possible.
A lot of them are not happy with the way the country's going, and so a lot of them have dropped ship of the Democratic Party under the age of 30. So apparently there's something there that's happening, and that's what I'm saying. Do you think possibly because of the way that system?
We'll
is
see in
formed?
November, because there could be a landslide for President Trump. I mean, that's what's being predicted right now. So that may well be the case. And by the way, the reason for that, I think, too, is Biden's so old and out of it.
I don't think it has anything to do with the age. I think it has to do with the fact that
but he's also way left.
Well,
I think even young people, by the way, the media crows about the loan forgiveness, the student loan forgiveness,
Right.
as some kind of big benefit to getting young people. Certain young people are loving it because they don't have to pay their loans. But I think a lot of young people look at that as fraudulent and illegal to just forgive people's loans because they didn't go to college, they didn't borrow the money.
I know he talked about that. Was that approved? Because I heard that he had to go.
No,
through,
court has frozen it for now. Yeah,
he had to go through Congress. But Congress, even Nancy Pelosi had said
absolutely
that he overstepped his boundaries when he promised people that they could get their loans forgiven, because that's something that has to go through Congress first.
Totally, and the reason Biden is doing it is to buy votes, and I think people can see that. So, and he's gone way left on so many issues. I think that's part of Biden's issue, and which is why he's being kicked to the curb here.
So now we'll just bring in Gavin Newsom, who comes from a
far
system,
left.
who's jumping ship because he has higher political aspirations, and he hasn't really been effective in California as much as he might want to think that he has. But a lot of businesses and people are leaving, and there are a lot of people.
Well, you and I discussed this. I have my doubts that Newsom is going to be on the ticket in 24. You may think something differently, but I think that if Biden is kicked out, which it looks like he will be this weekend, I think Kamala will be his replacement, and Newsom and Kamala are from the same state, so I don't think they can run together.
Right.
But
isn't it
Newsom's setting himself up for 28. There's no question about that.
So that's why he's been visiting all these other
Oh yeah,
states.
yeah, he's setting himself up for 28.
He's even gone to all these other countries, and that's where he's.
He's a relatively young man. I think he's 56 or something like that. So he could, he'll be 60 in 2028. I mean, that's certainly an age that he could get the job done. And so,
I don't think he should be elected based on his face.
God no. But that's obviously he starts off with a huge advantage. Having California's 56 or so electoral college votes is a pretty big number to start with. So he'll have some advantages.
Is there one last thing? You're involved with a movie coming out.
Oh, let's talk about the Reagan movie. Oh my God!
I totally forget. You know what it is? Is you're such a Renaissance man that we would have to have like.
You're very kind.
No, I'm very honest. I mean,
I'm in the movie, by the way.
Really,
I'm in the movie.
So let's talk about.
But do not go out for popcorn or
miss you?
Because you'll miss me.
Okay. So how did you get involved with this project? By the way, Reagan was my favorite president.
Oh, mine too. He brought me to the Republican Party.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, I was a Democrat when I was a kid.
Reagan was a Democrat.
He was.
And he was president of the Screen Actors.
His famous line, which is true, is that the Democratic Party left him. He didn't leave the Democratic Party,
Okay.
and I would say the same thing.
Okay.
But the point is, the movie, I got involved because the producer knew about me running for governor and reached out and helped me a little bit in the campaign for governor.
Nice.
And then I got involved in it, and he gave me a small role. I play Justice Warren Burger.
Oh, wow.
Who swears Reagan in. You got to have somebody.
Well, you look like a judge.
Well, they didn't need any makeup or hair dye, so
I wouldn't know about hair.
I saved them a lot of money, but basically it's being released August 30th. We're going to do a August 21st premiere here in San Diego.
I would love to go to that.
Well, we'll make sure you get an invitation.
We would love to cover it.
Yeah.
I've been here. I've seen clips of the movie.
Yeah, oh, it's great. I've seen it 6 times.
I've seen clips, and I
wonderful.
Well, I like Dennis Quaid.
Oh, he's great. I've gotten to know him. I played golf with him. He's a great guy. Great guy.
But I mean, I've seen a lot of his movies. He's always he has this realism about him that when he portrays a character.
He is, I know, endorsed President Trump, but he's not political extreme that way or anything.
He's an independent, right?
Yeah, but he really believes in the country, and frankly, the more he got into the movie, the more he believed in Reagan. I mean, it was kind of an amazing
transformation.
Thing. Yeah,
Did he pull it off?
Oh, incredible. I mean,
hit it out of the park.
I'm sitting there playing golf with him, and he would go into the voice, and I would think I was playing golf with President Reagan. I mean, he's got the voice and the mannerisms down. It really is kind of funny, and he can turn it on and off like that. He's a tremendous actor, and more importantly, the movie is about values and about Reagan's fight against the evil empire, as he called it, the communistic and the socialistic. You know.
Is the evil empire now in California compared to when Reagan was governor? I mean, because the evil empire in my mind is the Democratic Party in California.
Can I get philosophical with you a second, Brett? If you look at the history of the world, I mean, going back to the pharaohs and to the kings, it's always about one group of people trying to control vast numbers, isn't it?
Yeah.
For their own ends and purposes.
Right.
I mean, the pharaoh, the kings, all the way along. In Reagan's view, that was the communist and socialist, the collective. And what happens in a collective like that, and Javier Milei of Argentina is fighting that now, that battle, that collective, the power holders of the collective are a small group usually, and they use that power to keep down the rest of the people. Reagan saw that. Reagan fought a lifelong battle against communism and socialism because he knew that he thought the power should be in the hands of the people. And whenever you have a communistic or a socialistic or a collective atmosphere, it sounds great. Everybody says, oh, I want to, share things with everybody. I want everybody to benefit. But throughout history, if you look at every communist and socialistic environment that they've tried it, it's usually a small group of people who end up with the power, and they use it to oppress the people and keep them down and take away rights and take away privileges.
Well, look at what Mao did. Look at Mao did in China.
Mao.
He took all the people that had.
Look at Xi Jinping now. 500 people control the whole country of communist China, and they use it for their own power and privilege.
Right.
And they try to keep the rest of the people down.
It doesn't work. It's a system.
It never works.
Because
it never works.
If it worked, why are so many people wanting to come to the United States?
Exactly. Why are people escaping communist China? Because they want freedom. Well, they want opportunity. They want to set their own agenda. They want to have their own business or their own life to live. That's the yearning of everybody for freedom, and that's what Reagan was all about.
And that's exactly what he's talking about. And I think that the time that you're making this movie about Reagan and Trump getting in office,
very
and
important.
Completely different types of personalities. But if the Democratic Party and communism and socialism worked, why are there so many people leaving the Democratic Party right now, and why are so many people trying to come to the United States?
Absolutely the case. People are not risking their lives going through the Darien Gap because they love what's happening in their own country. They're coming to America because they see freedom, they see opportunity, they see a country where they can have a life and they can have a difference. We do need to have people come in. We should do it legally. We should reform our immigration system to make coming to this country easier,
I think it's
frankly.
going to be you're going to see a lot of changes coming.
Yes, I hope the president does that. We certainly need to protect the border. We need to make sure we know everybody who's coming in, because there's a lot of bad people in this world, and we don't want them in this country. But we do want to be the beacon of hope and liberty and opportunity for the rest of the world in a controlled way where we know who's coming in. And I think hopefully the president is able to communicate that way.
I'm so honored that you came today. I knew this was going to be a good interview with you. You've taken
Hope it gets heard by a few 100 million people.
Well, we're going to flip it out. One last question.
Yes.
One last thing you want to say to Mr. Newsom?
Work to put power.
Look right there.
Put power in the hands of the people. If you really believe in what you say, you should look at the neighborhood legislature. You should look at Hear the People. You should look at a structure that puts the people back in power, and that's if you really believe in that. I somehow don't think you do, but if you do, take a look at what I'm talking about.
I appreciate you being here, John.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing your movie and reading your book. I don't know where to start with you. I'm going to need a whole take some time off from work just to get caught up with you.
Well, my most important job is father and husband, and that's why I'm very proud. By the way, I just had my first grandchild.
Congratulations.
Granddaughter.
Congratulations.
So I'm in love all over again. And
Isn't that beautiful?
It's just fantastic. I recommend it for everybody.
That's one of my goals. I can't wait to be a grandfather.
Everybody told me it was going to be great, and I said yes. I'm looking forward to it, but I am just head over heels in love with Palmer Rose. So
Palmer Rose is how old now?
She is now 8 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, 7 weeks.
She's living locally?
No, Chicago.
Oh, it's too far.
My daughters grew up in Chicago.
I got you. I get it.
I'll be back there a lot, though. I'm looking forward to.
Will you come back sometime?
Yeah, sure.
I would love to have you come back. I think you're
I
think you're very effective at what we're doing, and I think it's grassroots and it cuts to what we're trying to do.
Well, if I was really effective, I would have been elected governor, but maybe
that has nothing to do with you. I think what we need to do next time, if you decide to ever do this, is get just a better team.
Well, I need a better team, and I need a whole bunch of billionaires to get their wallets out and help get this message out, and
maybe more individuals and more people sending money too.
Yeah, maybe so, but I can't do it by myself.
No, you can't.
No one can do it by themselves, and we need a lot of help.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, everybody, take care of yourself. Thank you. I look forward to seeing everything that he's doing. This great book that we're going to be reading. I'm going to start reading it actually this weekend when I have some time off.
Good. I'll be interested in your review.
And of course, hearthepeople.org is also very important. And let's get behind John and everything he's doing, because honestly, he's doing this. He does care, and it comes across. And everybody take care. Be good to each other, and God bless.